Surprisingly, the universe hides its most profound and restless secrets miles beneath this blinding frozen shield, locking away an environment of staggering proportions. Imagine a lightless global ocean churning violently under the ice, a vast and pressurized sea containing significantly more liquid water than every terrestrial ocean on Earth, combined into a single, unified mantle. The mounting pressure of this abyssal deep eventually finds a way to shatter the icy ceiling and break through the planetary silence, erupting into colossal slow-motion geysers that shoot glittering microscopic frost hundreds of miles into the black airless sky. If we were to look closer at this violent interplay of forces, we would realize that the harshest extremes of the cosmic environment converge here in a magnificent, terrifying harmony. The relentless, lethal radiation and the crushing gravitational wringing of a massive gas giant do not destroy this world, but instead actively fuel a hidden sanctuary teeming with the quiet, suspended anticipation of a dormant, ancient secret. It is a unique pocket of biological potential unlike anything else in the void, where the boundaries between a desolate, irradiated wasteland and a warm, protected cradle of life are constantly shifting in the dark. Now, gently bring your focus away from the freezing void of space and draw it back down into the quiet, enveloping warmth of your own resting body. Notice the soft, yielding support of the mattress beneath you, acting as a flawless gravitational anchor that holds you perfectly securely as you prepare to journey across the stars. You're safe, and these wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep. Let your breathing slow down to match the patient, eternal rhythm of a distant orbit, consciously releasing the final lingering tensions of the waking day with every gentle exhale. Your mind is now entirely free to drift away from the heavy gravity of your daily responsibilities, floating weightlessly into the quiet edge of the Jovian night. In just a moment, you will arrive at the very beginning of our journey, descending toward a celestial sphere gleaming like a polished pearl against the absolute velvet blackness of the Jovian system. Gleaming like a polished pearl against the absolute velvet blackness of the Jovian system, this celestial sphere possesses one of the brightest and smoothest surfaces ever discovered in our cosmic neighborhood. Gazing upon this world from the void, an observer is instantly struck by the sheer radiance emanating from its perfectly buffed exterior, which stands in stark defiance of the heavily battered appearances of its neighbouring moons. This unbroken shell of crystalline purity lacks the towering mountain ranges and plunging valleys that define standard planetary geology. Instead, it presents an endless plateau of frozen brilliance that wraps the entire globe in a seamless, luminous embrace. The blinding mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight bounces relentlessly off this vast, smooth topography, transforming the small world into a brilliant beacon wandering through the harsh darkness of deep space. Such flawless radiance suggests a surface constantly renewing itself, wiping away the chaotic scars of meteor strikes to maintain an immaculate, glowing face. If we were to look closer, the sheer perfection of the ice would reveal a terrifying stillness, a serene but absolute desolation that masks the tremendous forces churning miles beneath the crust. This immaculate shield of white offers no shelter, reflecting the cold light of the sun back into the void with unyielding, hypnotic intensity. Deep within the frigid extremes of the outer solar system, water completely sheds its familiar yielding nature and adopts a terrifyingly rigid state. Picture a world where water ice behaves exactly like solid rock, forged into an impenetrable crust by temperatures so severe they halt the very vibration of molecules. Under these brutal thermal conditions, the familiar substance that flows gently through terrestrial rivers transforms into a geologic bedrock harder than granite, capable of fracturing, faulting, and shattering just like stone. This profound cold strips the water of its fluidity, locking every atom into a merciless crystalline grid that dictates the physical reality of the entire moon. The sheer density of this frozen bedrock creates a landscape of unyielding severity, where towering cliffs of solid ice could theoretically shatter a steel blade upon impact. Such extreme rigidity means the surface responds to the immense gravitational tides of its parent gas giant, not by rippling like a sea, but by cracking with violent tectonic force. Wandering across these endless plains of white, one would feel the absolute, unyielding solidity beneath their feet, a foundation of frozen ocean acting as an armoured shell. The blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight dances over a material so cold it has forgotten how to melt, trapping an entire world in a state of suspended animation. Striking this frozen armour, an astonishing 70% of all incoming sunlight is violently rejected and cast back into the deep void of space. This remarkable albedo effect ensures that the little energy reaching this distant orbit is instantly repelled by the blinding mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight on the endless plains of white. The sheer efficiency of this icy mirror prevents any meaningful heat from penetrating the surface, reinforcing the vicious cycle of absolute freezing that maintains the planetary crust. Because so little solar radiation is absorbed, the crust remains perpetually locked in a cryogenic state, starving the exterior of the thermal energy required to soften the ice. It is a world that actively refuses the warmth of its star, throwing the faint light back across the millions of miles of empty vacuum. Observers charting this celestial body would note how it sparkles intensely against the cosmic dark, a glittering jewel hoarding its internal mysteries while aggressively blinding any optical instruments trying to peer closer. This massive rejection of light creates an incredibly stark visual contrast, where any shadows cast by minor surface ridges become pools of absolute, impenetrable blackness. The intense, unyielding glare of the rejected sunlight defines the visual reality of the moon, rendering it a mesmerizing but hostile beacon of permanent winter. Surprisingly, the universe offers here a topography completely devoid of the towering mountains or plunging impact craters that scar almost every other solid body orbiting the sun. Scanning the blinding, mirror-like reflection of a distant sunlight on these endless plains of white, one searches in vain for the familiar jagged peaks or ancient dusty basins typical of lunar landscapes. The ice stretches out in a shockingly flat continuum, a pristine geometric sphere unmarked by the dramatic geological upheavals that build immense terrestrial ranges. This uncanny smoothness indicates a surface that is geographically alive, relentlessly erasing any topographical deviations before they can permanently establish themselves. Any meteor that manages to pierce the icy veil leaves a temporary wound that slowly slumps and relaxes back into the flat, frozen plain over geological time. The sheer weight and creeping flow of the ice simply cannot support the mass of a mountain, causing any vertical protrusions to inexorably sink and flatten. It is a landscape of terrifying monotony, where the eye finds no purchase on rolling hills or deep canyons. The relentless levelling force of the shifting ice maintains an endless flat horizon, amplifying the hypnotic glare of the sun across an utterly featureless expanse. Only a handful of truly massive impact events manage to blemish the pristine, youthful exterior of this remarkable moon. These rare, dramatic scars stand out starkly against the blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight on the surrounding endless plains of white, serving as the few testaments to cosmic collisions. The scarcity of these heavy craters is the ultimate proof that the icy crust we see today is astronomically young, perhaps only a few tens of millions of years old. Unlike the ancient, heavily pockmarked faces of neighbouring satellites, this shell acts like a fresh canvas that continually wipes away the debris and damage of billions of years of cosmic bombardment. The dynamic churning of the underlying layers slowly heals the giant wounds inflicted by wandering asteroids, sealing the fractures with fresh water that instantly crystallizes in the vacuum. This constant, silent resurfacing process effectively hides the true age of the celestial body, presenting a deceptively newborn facade to the wider solar system. To witness this landscape is to look upon a world in a constant state of rebirth, fighting back the chaotic violence of space with a slow, creeping wave of fresh ice. The rare craters that do survive look less like deep bowls of rock and more like concentric rings of shattered, refrozen slush frozen in time. This vast, unyielding armour of ice covers a globe that is surprisingly delicate, measuring slightly smaller in diameter than our own terrestrial moon. Despite its modest dimensions, this compact sphere commands a presence far greater than its physical size would suggest, outshining its larger siblings through its blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight. The endless plains of white wrap tightly around this relatively diminutive core, concentrating the moon's profound mysteries into a dense, geologically hyperactive package. Orbiting in the immense gravitational shadow of a gas giant, its slight frame is subjected to physical forces that would utterly destroy a less resilient celestial body. Yet, it endures, holding its perfect spherical shape while hurtling through the deadly radiation belts of the Jovian system at terrifying speeds. The sheer concentration of water locked within this small volume challenges our understanding of planetary formation, holding more liquid potential than worlds 10 times its size. Viewing it from afar, the stark, bright perfection of its surface creates an optical illusion, making the moon appear far more massive and dominant than its actual orbital mechanics dictate. It is a tiny, glittering jewel of frozen water, defying the dark expanse of space with a brilliance entirely disproportionate to its humble, moon-sized scale. Plunging into an abyss of thermal deprivation, the surface temperature across these endless plains of white never rises above a frigid negative 220 degrees Fahrenheit. At the moon's equator, during the absolute height of the faint local summer, the blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight provides absolutely no relief from this crushing permanent frost. Such incomprehensible cold instantly stops all chemical reactions dead in their tracks, preserving the surface layer in a state of perfectly sterile stasis. As one travels toward the shadowed poles, the environment becomes even more violently hostile, dropping to temperatures approaching negative 370 degrees. In this realm of ultimate cold, the atmosphere itself would instantly freeze and fall to the ground like snow, leaving nothing but an empty, echoing vacuum above the ice. The brutal temperature differential between the warm depths and this frozen skin creates a massive planetary thermos, sealing the vital heat deep within the core. Any heat that attempts to radiate from the rocky interior is fiercely choked off by miles of this super-chilled, rock-hard ice. It is a chilling paradox of nature, where the outer face is entirely defined by thermal death, acting as a flawless, frozen vault for the warmer secrets hidden far below. Imagine standing completely alone upon an endless plain of white, where the horizon drops away and curves noticeably sharper than it does on Earth. Because of the moon's relatively small diameter, the edge of the world feels oppressively close, creating an optical geometry that subtly disorients the human perspective. The blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight runs along this tight curve, bending the glare of the star around a globe that feels both infinitely vast and claustrophobically small. Looking straight out across the frozen expanse, the flat ice seems to simply vanish into the blackness of space at a surprisingly short distance, lacking the gentle, sprawling atmospheric fade of a larger planet. This sharp, abrupt drop-off emphasizes the absolute isolation of the landscape, heavily reinforcing the sensation of standing on a tiny marble suspended in an infinite dark void. The tight curvature of the ground means that a traveller would see new constellations rising over the icy edge much faster as they walked forward. Every direction offers exactly the same terrifyingly pure curved line separating the glowing white crust from the absolute black of the cosmos. It is an alien geometry that perfectly frames the desolate, frozen purity of the surface, highlighting the absolute loneliness of this distant, wandering sphere. Subtle impurities manage to corrupt the absolute purity of the ice, as trace amounts of sulfur frost faintly tint the trailing hemisphere of the little moon. This delicate dusting of pale yellow and reddish hues paints a ghostly smudge across the otherwise blinding mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight on the endless plains of white. These alien chemicals are violently ripped from the volcanic eruptions of the neighbouring moon Io, carried across space by immense magnetic currents, and slammed directly into the trailing ice. This relentless bombardment acts as a slow cosmic spray paint, fundamentally altering the chemistry of the outer shell facing away from the direction of orbital travel. The sulfur slowly bakes into the super-chilled ice under the constant glare of trapped radiation, creating complex sulfuric acid hydrates that map out the path of the invisible magnetic storm. It stands as a vivid chemical testament to the interconnected and violent nature of the Jovian orbital system. The visual contrast between the pure, unblemished leading hemisphere and the slightly stained trailing edge provides a silent record of the moon's endless march through a hostile radioactive gauntlet. Even in its frozen stasis, the surface is constantly interacting with the chaotic forces of its planetary neighbours, absorbing their volcanic breath into its icy skin. Above all else, a profound and absolute silence reigns supreme across this frozen vacuum, unbroken by even the faintest whisper of wind. Lacking any substantial atmosphere to carry acoustic waves, the endless plains of white exist in a state of total, deafening quiet that is entirely alien to human experience. Even if a massive meteor were to slam into the crust, fracturing the ice with the force of a nuclear weapon, an observer standing just a mile away would hear absolutely nothing. The blinding mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight illuminates a world where the most violent tectonic shifts and cracking fault lines occur in complete acoustic isolation. This lack of sound heavily amplifies the hypnotic, surreal visual impact of the pristine landscape, turning the entire moon into a terrifyingly beautiful silent film playing out on a cosmic scale. The sensory deprivation of the vacuum forces one to rely solely on the blinding glare of the ice to understand the physical reality of the environment. Deep beneath the frozen rock, the hidden ocean may roar with currents and the groaning of shifting tides, but none of that sound can escape the armour. On the surface, the eternal quiet perfectly matches the absolute cold, creating an environment of flawless, terrifying serenity at the edge of the solar system. Beneath that flawless, terrifying serenity at the edge of the solar system, a monstrous invisible hand is perpetually at work. Jupiter, an unimaginably massive gas giant, exerts a colossal gravitational pull that endlessly stretches and squeezes the little moon like a yielding sphere of clay. As the celestial body travels along its designated path, the immense gravitational grip of the giant planet constantly deforms the solid crust, pulling the rigid ice outward by massive, agonizing degrees. This relentless physical manipulation creates a rhythmic, groaning vibration of shifting ice under immense celestial tension, an acoustic phenomenon trapped eternally deep within the frozen shell. The entire planetary globe is forced to physically bulge toward its dominant master, only to relax and violently subside as the orbital distance slightly fluctuates. Such constant reshaping generates unimaginable internal pressures, effectively treating the rock-hard exterior as if it were a highly flexible membrane. Such immense structural stress guarantees that the world is never truly at rest, despite the frozen, deceptive stillness of its visual exterior. The hidden rocky core and the overlying ice are perpetually kneaded by inescapable gravitational hands, ensuring the moon's internal architecture is constantly in motion. It is a profound demonstration of how invisible cosmic fields can exert terrifying physical dominance over a solid, seemingly unyielding planetary body. Deep within the mantle and the thick icy armour, this relentless tidal flexing generates massive amounts of internal friction. As the distinct internal layers of heavy rock, dense water, and the frozen outer crust are dragged aggressively back and forth against one another, the sheer mechanical resistance produces profound subterranean heat. This torturous process transforms raw kinetic orbital energy directly into thermal energy, providing a fierce internal fire that violently fights back against the cosmic freeze. Without this continuous, agonizing grinding of planetary layers, the entire globe would have surrendered to the void and frozen completely solid billions of years ago. The structural friction acts as a colossal, natural engine, quietly humming beneath the icy plains and steadily warming the abyssal depths where no starlight can reach. It is an awe-inspiring mechanism where the purely destructive power of a crushing gravitational field is paradoxically converted into a life-sustaining source of warmth. This newly generated heat slowly radiates upward from the rocky core, desperately attempting to melt the bottom of the frozen shell even as the vacuum of space freezes the top. The delicate, terrifying equilibrium between the brutal external cold and this violent internal friction dictates the very architecture and survival of the Moon. This hidden furnace ensures the celestial sphere remains geologically active, forever caught between absolute zero and the heat of its own internal torment. Time moves with a terrifying, rapid precision in this corner of the cosmos, dictating the violent rhythm of these immense geological forces. Every 85 hours, the celestial sphere completes one perfectly synchronized orbit around the churning, storm-covered gas giant it calls Master. Because it is securely tidally locked by gravity, the little world always presents the exact same frozen face to its massive host, much like our own familiar terrestrial moon. As you absorb this immense scale of cosmic motion, allow your own breathing to gently slow, feeling the steady, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest mirroring these celestial cycles. Let your muscles sink deeper into your resting place, firmly anchored and safely removed from such overwhelming planetary velocities. Rest securely in the knowledge that your own environment is peaceful, stable, and completely exempt from these violent gravitational tides. The little moon does not dance through the terrifying void alone. It is securely locked in a stabilizing orbital resonance with its massive neighboring siblings. Io, a hellish sulphurous volcanic sphere, and Ganymede, a colossal ancient icy giant, continuously exert their own powerful gravitational influences upon the middle child. Together, these three distinct worlds are bound in an elegant, mathematically perfect relationship that fundamentally alters their individual planetary destinies. This invisible, unbreakable tether ensures that whenever the planetary bodies align, their combined gravitational weight pulls sharply on one another in a highly repetitive, predictable pattern. These periodic, massive tugs prevent any of the moons from ever settling into simple, quiet paths, instead forcing them all into an eternal state of energetic agitation. The delicate gravitational balance ensures the entire system remains dynamically stable over billions of years, even as it relentlessly tortures the interiors of the individual worlds involved. Notice how the universe effortlessly creates harmony through tension, binding violently different environments together through the invisible, unbreakable threads of mass and distance. The rhythmic groaning vibration of shifting ice under immense celestial tension is ultimately a symptom of this grand, synchronized planetary choreography playing out across the dark. Every fracture on the surface is a direct record of this complex orbital relationship, carved into the ice by the sheer weight of neighboring spheres. Picture a magnificent, impossibly vast cosmic clockwork mechanism where the intricate gears are whole worlds grinding against the silent fabric of space. For every single, wide orbit the massive outer sibling Ganymede completes, our frozen sphere makes exactly 2 precise loops around the central giant. Furthermore, the violently active inner sibling Io completes exactly 4 desperate, rapid orbits in that exact same span of temporal measurement. This precise geometric ratio is one of the most elegant and fiercely powerful architectural features found in the entire solar system. Every time these massive moons pass each other in the dark, they line up at the exact same points in their orbital paths, delivering a rhythmic, powerful gravitational kick. These perfectly timed celestial kicks dramatically amplify the stretching forces applied to the ice, much like pushing a child on a playground swing at the precise moment to continuously increase their height. The resulting mechanical energy is driven deep into the core of the icy sphere, ensuring the internal fires are constantly forcefully stoked by its passing celestial neighbours. The sheer scale of this clockwork reminds us that planetary bodies are not isolated islands, but intricately connected moving components of a vast, unforgiving machine. This mathematical perfection ensures the engine of friction never falters, locking the moon into a permanent state of pressurized survival. Surprisingly, the universe actively utilizes this beautiful synchronization to enforce an imperfect, slightly stretched orbital path upon the bright moon. This complex gravitational dance forces the icy sphere into an elliptical trajectory, rather than allowing it a perfect, serene circle around its parent planet. Because the absolute distance between the moon and the gas giant is constantly changing, the strength of the tidal pull fluctuates wildly from one day to the next. When the world swings uncomfortably close to the massive planet, the gravitational grip becomes agonizingly tight, violently stretching the equator outward and generating fierce subterranean friction. As it retreats to the farthest point of its designated ellipse, the invisible grip relaxes, allowing the rocky core and frozen shell to aggressively snap back toward a more spherical shape. This ceaseless, agonizing flexing acts exactly like a massive planetary lung, breathing in kinetic energy and forcefully exhaling intense thermal radiation into the dark water. Just as the moon rhythmically expands and relaxes in the void, notice the gentle, subtle tension leaving your own shoulders and neck as you listen to this cosmic mechanism. Allow the supportive, yielding surface beneath you to absorb any lingering tightness, resting peacefully while the cosmos does the heavy, violent lifting. Sink softly into your own gravity, embracing the stillness that this distant world is forever denied. The fiery, sulfur-choked inner sibling plays a particularly crucial, disruptive role in maintaining this vital energetic imbalance across the planetary system. The intense gravity from the nearby volcanic world occasionally tugs the icy sphere slightly outward, aggressively preventing its orbit from ever decaying into a perfectly circular, restful path. If left purely to the isolating devices of the central gas giant, the moon would have eventually settled into a smooth circular orbit long ago, dooming itself to a frozen death. A perfectly circular orbit would dictate a constant, unchanging gravitational pull, which would completely eliminate the tidal flexing and permanently extinguish the vital internal heat. However, the recurring outward yank from the inner sibling constantly resets the stretched ellipse, ensuring the icy world is continuously deformed and structurally tortured. It is a brilliant, terrifying paradox where the disruptive interference of a neighbouring world is the exact sole mechanism preventing total planetary death. This constant, invisible tug-of-war across millions of miles of empty vacuum manifests physically as the rhythmic, groaning vibration of shifting ice under immense celestial tension. The frozen crust constantly, loudly protests this rough treatment, echoing with the deep structural groans of a world desperately trying to find an equilibrium it is simply never allowed to reach. The agony of the ice is the very pulse of the moon, sustained entirely by the relentless pulling of the sulphurous neighbour. Deep beneath the unyielding armour of the bright surface, these astronomical forces manipulate a substance far more yielding and dynamic than solid rock. The tides of the massive hidden ocean may dramatically rise and fall by nearly 100 feet as the entire moon is gravitationally squeezed and released. Imagine a colossal, pitch-black sea surging violently upward against the ceiling of its icy prison, driven by the inescapable rhythmic pull of the gas giant above. On our own familiar planet, the gentle pull of our small moon creates a variance of mere feet along our coastal beaches. Here, the entire global volume of subterranean water is violently continuously shifted, creating massive internal currents and immense pressure waves that brutally scour the rocky seafloor. This profound, unstoppable movement of liquid mass creates a highly dynamic, churning abyss where stagnation is physically impossible and the water is in constant turmoil. The sheer, terrifying power of these subterranean tides constantly batters against the underside of the frozen shell, slowly wearing away at the icy ceiling from below. The rhythmic, groaning vibration of shifting ice under immense celestial tension is partially the muffled sound of this trapped, violent ocean desperately trying to break free from its frozen containment. This tidal energy thoroughly mixes the dark waters, ensuring heat and minerals are violently distributed throughout the lightless depths. Ultimately, this relentless physical punishment is the solitary force standing firmly between the hidden sea and absolute eternal solidification. Such immense frictional forces and constant tidal heating prevent the subterranean waters from ever freezing completely solid, despite existing billions of miles away from the sun's warming rays. The constant, violent churning acts as a flawless anti-freeze mechanism on a planetary scale, forcefully maintaining the immense volume of water in a vital liquid state. If the orbital resonance were to magically cease, the gravitational heat engine would instantly shut down, and the terrible, creeping cold of the void would slowly conquer the depths. Over millions of years, the ocean would crystallize from the top down, expanding rapidly and shattering the entire moon into a lifeless, silent sphere of fractured ice. Instead, the universe has designed a precarious, terrifying balance, where violent structural stretching preserves the delicate, essential medium of liquid water. As you ponder the miraculous survival of this hidden ocean against impossible celestial odds, feel the comforting, stable warmth of your own resting body. Let the quiet, effortless rhythm of your pulse remind you of the steady, enduring forces that sustain your own life. Far removed from the violent stretching of the outer cosmos, you are safe, warm, and perfectly balanced, held securely by a world that asks nothing of you but to simply breathe. Through this astonishing, violent interplay of mass and momentum, tidal friction provides the essential energy that keeps this frozen world incredibly dynamic and alive. It is a profound realization that the thermal heart of this globe is not powered by the gentle light of a star, but by the raw kinetic energy of gravity itself. The rhythmic, groaning vibration of shifting ice under immense celestial tension is not a planetary death rattle, but the very loud, aggressive heartbeat of an active planetary system. This unseen gravitational engine drives absolutely everything, from the shifting tectonic faults on the blinding surface to the warm, mineral-rich currents circulating in the pitch-black abyss below. It scientifically proves that a world can be entirely locked in darkness and absolute cold on its surface, yet remain vibrantly energetic in its hidden, watery depths. The immense tension between the crushing gas giant and the pulling siblings creates a perpetual motion machine of profound geological and chemical significance. As we map the complex orbital mechanics of this tiny sphere, we uncover a masterful piece of celestial engineering where destruction and preservation are perfectly, precariously balanced. The invisible, unbreakable threads of gravity weave a compelling story of profound planetary resilience, ensuring the dark waters below never succumb to the eternal quiet of the frozen shell above. It is a world suspended by a thread of gravity, vibrating with power in the absolute dark. Emerging from that absolute dark, the immense physical power vibrating below reveals itself violently on the bright surface above. Countless dark fractures, formerly designated as lineae, aggressively crisscross the entire icy globe like a chaotic web of shattered glass. These deep fissures interrupt the otherwise flawless plains, providing undeniable visual proof that the solid exterior is constantly yielding to the restless energy trapped within. The rust-coloured, jagged cracks cutting across a vast, pale canvas create a stark, brutal contrast against the blinding white terrain. Rather than a single catastrophic break, the crust is subjected to a continuous slow-motion shattering that spans every latitude and longitude of the sphere. Viewing this planetary canvas from a distance, it appears as though a cosmic artist has frantically scribbled dark, intersecting lines over a perfect pearl. Deep within this sprawling global network, the sheer scale of the geological trauma becomes almost incomprehensible to the terrestrial mind. Some of these intricate fault lines stretch for thousands of miles uninterrupted, wrapping themselves around a significant portion of the little moon's circumference. A single, continuous tear in the frozen armour can easily outlast the entire width of a terrestrial continent, carving a monumental boundary through the desolation. The immense length of these primary ruptures indicates that the stress forces tearing the shell apart operate on a truly global unified scale. Following one of these main veins from its violent origin to its tapering end is a journey across vastly different frozen biomes. These gargantuan scars serve as major planetary highways of geological upheaval, dictating where the surface will finally split next. Surprisingly, the ominous bloody discoloration of these massive wounds is not native to the pure water ice that dominates the pristine landscape. The reddish hue of these cracks likely comes from ancient sea salt, drawn up from the hidden abyss and fiercely irradiated by the giant planet's relentless magnetic storms. When the sodium chloride native to the dark subterranean waters is suddenly exposed to harsh cosmic radiation, its chemical structure is fundamentally altered, adopting a deep, rusty tint. This profound chemical transformation paints the rust-coloured, jagged cracks cutting across a vast, pale canvas, effectively mapping the deep ocean's composition upon the dry, freezing exterior. The presence of this irradiated sea salt proves that the dark waters below frequently manage to breach the thick ceiling and momentarily taste the vacuum of space. As you visualize this massive planetary chemistry experiment, allow your jaw to softly unclench and let your tongue rest gently behind your teeth. Feel the calm, steady rhythm of your own enclosed biology, perfectly insulated from the harsh, transforming radiation of the outer dark. Sink deeper into the comfort of your surroundings, safe from the violent exposures of the deep cosmos. If we were to look closer at the equator, we would discover sprawling, catastrophic zones where the ordered web of the long fractures completely breaks down. Chaos terrain absolutely dominates these distinct regions, marking areas where the thick ice crust has violently shattered and haphazardly refrozen into jagged towering blocks. The familiar smooth plains are entirely obliterated here, replaced by a brutally rugged wasteland of tilted, jagged ice monoliths, frozen in a state of sudden, violent collapse. It is as if an explosive force from the deep abyss punched upward, briefly liquefying the ceiling before the vacuum instantly froze the resulting wreckage. Navigating this treacherous, rust-coloured landscape would be physically impossible, requiring a traveller to scale towering shards of tilted crust and avoid seemingly bottomless chasms. This chaotic geology represents the most geologically recent and violent outbursts of the hidden ocean's internal fury. Picture a catastrophic planetary thaw instantly frozen solid in the blink of a cosmic eye. These highly fragmented, chaotic landscapes look eerily similar to massive icebergs floating in Earth's polar oceans, separated by deep channels of dark, frozen slush. The individual, towering blocks of shattered crust retain their original flat tops, clearly indicating they were once part of the smooth surrounding plains before the violent subterranean upheaval broke them apart. By carefully measuring the tilted angles and matching the edges of these frozen rafts, celestial observers can visually reconstruct the original, unbroken landscape. The dark, rust-coloured material filling the wide gaps between the frozen blocks is the icy blood of the moon, ocean water that quickly surged up to fill the catastrophic void. This eerie structural similarity to familiar terrestrial Arctic regions provides a hauntingly relatable anchor amidst the profound alien hostility. Notice the elegant mathematical precision permanently etched into the ice amidst the seemingly random destruction of the plains. Distinctive cycloid cracks form perfect, sweeping arcs across the globe, creating massive scalloped patterns that beautifully track the daily shifting of the dominant gas giant's tides. As the immense gravitational pull aggressively rotates around the little moon during its brief orbit, the direction of the physical stress slowly rotates as well, tearing the ice in a continuous curving arc. Once the daily tidal stress drops below a critical threshold, the tearing instantly stops, only to brutally resume the next day at a slightly different newly rotated angle. This violent start and stop sequence perfectly records the precise orbital mechanics of the celestial dance, drawing a literal massive graph of gravity directly onto the pale canvas. These elegant arcs are perhaps the most direct, visual manifestation of invisible celestial mechanics written anywhere in the solar system. Take a slow, deep breath, letting the air sweep through your lungs much like those immense forces sweep across the distant ice. Release any tension in your hands, letting your fingers uncurl and rest openly, mirroring the peaceful release of those curving planetary fractures. Scattered among these sweeping arcs are bizarre, localized blemishes that resemble a massive outbreak of planetary measles. Lenticulae, or small distinctively reddish spots, heavily mark areas where columns of significantly warmer ice are slowly bubbling up from the deep abyss below. These rising columns of slushy, heated material forcefully push against the rigid outer ceiling, creating large, dome-like blisters that crack and aggressively stain the surrounding pristine surface. Unlike the sudden, catastrophic destruction of the chaotic block regions, these spots represent a slow, agonizing thermal creep that patiently deforms the crust over millennia. The rust-coloured, jagged cracks cutting across a vast, pale canvas often intersect these thermal domes, releasing the trapped, colourful brine onto the cold exterior. These warm spots offer tantalising clues about the localised thermal vents that might be raging on the hidden rocky seafloor far beneath. This constant upwelling and tearing forcefully drives an incredibly slow, but entirely unstoppable lateral movement across the entire global crust. Imagine a gargantuan planetary-scale ice sheet constantly creeping and shifting, a slow-motion geological bulldozer relentlessly erasing any older impact craters in its destructive path. Because the surface is continuously being pulled apart, flooded with slush, and squashed back together, any historical record of cosmic bombardment is quickly digested and folded back into the interior. This creeping mechanism acts as a flawless, self-healing planetary skin, guaranteeing the absolute pristine, youthful appearance that so completely baffled early astronomical observers. The slow migration of these massive frozen tectonic plates grinds older features into absolute dust, seamlessly replacing them with fresh, unmarked plains. It is a world afflicted with a violent form of geological amnesia, constantly destroying its own past to accommodate the restless energy of the present. Deep beneath this moving, shifting skin, an even more profound mechanical disconnect completely isolates the bright surface from the heavy core. The entire frozen outer shell may be slowly, inexorably rotating entirely independently from the dense, rocky core buried far beneath it. Because the vast liquid ocean acts as a frictionless planetary bearing, the icy crust is completely free to slip and slide over the deep waters, entirely untethered from the solid central mass. Over the course of thousands of years, the geographic north pole of the ice shell might slowly drift completely away from the true axis of planetary rotation. This massive planetary slippage perfectly explains why some of the ancient rust-coloured fault lines appear completely misaligned with the current tidal stresses imposed by the gas giant. the world is quite literally a sphere within a sphere, with a frozen shell wandering aimlessly over a dark, churning sea. Defining the borders of this wandering shell are the most iconic, towering monuments to the little moon's immense internal pressure. Massive double ridges consistently flank many of the longest, deepest cracks, created as pressurized semi-liquid slush is violently squeezed out to the freezing surface. As the thick ice plates are gravitationally pulled apart and slammed back together, the slush is forcefully pumped upward, freezing instantly into twin parallel mountain ranges that run perfectly along the fault line. These towering parallel walls of extruded ocean water create a deep, central valley along the actual tier, completely dominating the local topography. The rust-coloured, jagged cracks cutting across a vast, pale canvas are framed by these brutal defensive walls, protecting the fragile vent from the sweeping winds of the plains. They stand as silent, freezing testaments to the continuous, violent heartbeat of a world that absolutely refuses to die in the dark. Indeed, this world refuses to die in the dark, and its most profound secret lies sequestered far beneath those jagged protective ramparts of ice. Deep within Europa, hidden away from the violent radiation of Jupiter and the freezing vacuum of space, exists a global ocean of liquid salt water that encompasses the entire moon. This is not a series of disconnected lakes or isolated pockets of moisture, but a singular unified body of water that wraps around the rocky interior like a gargantuan liquid mantle. It remains one of the most mesmerizing paradoxes in our solar system, a celestial body appearing as a dry, frozen wasteland on the outside while harboring a churning, watery heart within. This vast, dark sea is the true engine of the moon's geological restlessness, providing the fluid foundation upon which the icy crust must slip and slide. If we were to look closer, we would realize that the scale of this hidden abyss is truly staggering, plunging to depths that defy any terrestrial comparison. This hidden sea may plunge to depths of 40 to 100 miles, creating a vertical expanse that makes the deepest trenches of Earth seem like shallow puddles. While the Mariana Trench on our home planet reaches a mere 7 miles down, the waters here descend into a pitch-black territory 10 to 15 times deeper. This immense verticality creates an environment of absolute isolation, where the water at the bottom has not felt the influence of the surface for thousands of years. Such profound depth ensures that the ocean is a massive reservoir of stability, insulated by a ceiling of ice that is itself miles thick. Surprisingly, the universe has packed an incredible amount of liquid into this relatively small celestial sphere. Remarkably, this single moon contains more liquid water than all of Earth's oceans combined, despite being significantly smaller in total physical volume than our own world. While Earth is a massive rocky planet with a thin film of water coating its surface, Europa is a dedicated water world, where the liquid mantle constitutes a massive portion of its total mass. If you were to gather all the water from Earth's Pacific, Atlantic, Indian and Arctic oceans into a single drop, it would be dwarfed by the volume of the sea contained within this frozen Jovian moon. This concentration of water represents a colossal investment of planetary resources, suggesting that the outer solar system is far more hydrated than its dry, rocky inner neighbours. This structure does not simply end in a sharp line where the ice meets the water. Rather, the boundary between ice and ocean is likely a slushy, dynamic transition zone. Imagine a ceiling that is not solid, but rather a soft, yielding matrix of melting frost and pressurized brine, where the phases of matter begin to blur. This interface is a chaotic realm of half-frozen slurry, where the warmth from the depths constantly gnaws at the foundations of the icy shell above. As you envision this soft, yielding boundary, allow your own body to sink a few inches deeper into the surface beneath you. Feel the steady support of your mattress or chair, letting every muscle in your back and legs release its tension and become as heavy as the deep, dark water. The overwhelming, crushing weight of endless dark water pressing in from all sides creates a physical environment of terrifying intensity at the sea floor. Pressure at the bottom of this alien sea would easily crush a standard terrestrial submarine as if it were a fragile tin can, crumpling thick steel into a shapeless fragment in a fraction of a second. The weight of 100 miles of liquid combined with the mass of the overlying ice shell exerts a force that is almost incomprehensible to the human mind. At these depths, the water itself is squeezed into a state of extreme density, dictated by the relentless grip of the moon's internal gravity. This crushing reality ensures that the deep interior remains a pristine, untouched vault, protected from any intrusion by the sheer weight of its own existence. Surprisingly, the universe does not allow this vast body of water to remain stagnant in its lightless prison. Currents driven by internal heat might slowly circulate water from the equator to the poles, creating a global conveyor belt that moves through the darkness. As the rocky core is kneaded by the gravitational pull of Jupiter, it releases heat that warms the bottom layers of the ocean, causing them to become buoyant and rise. This slow-motion convection ensures that minerals and thermal energy are distributed throughout the global sea, preventing the water from becoming a stratified, dead environment. The movement of these massive hidden rivers acts as the moon's circulatory system, carrying the warmth of the interior to the cold underside of the ice. Deep within this realm, one would find a lightless abyss where the only warmth comes from the rocky seafloor below, far from the reach of a distant sun. This is a world where the sun never rises, and the very concept of day and night is completely absent, replaced by the steady, unblinking glow of hydrothermal activity. Here, the water is heated by direct contact with the volcanic vents and geologically active minerals of the moon's heavy interior, creating localized oases of energy in the dark. As you contemplate this eternal warm midnight, notice the rhythm of your own breath, letting it become slow and effortless. Let your hands rest softly, feeling the gentle warmth of your own skin as you drift further away from the cold, bright world of the surface. This structure is seasoned with the same fundamental ingredients that define the oceans of our home. Dissolved magnesium and sodium chlorides give the water a composition surprisingly akin to our own seas, suggesting a chemical heritage that spans the solar system. These salts are leached from the rocky core by the high-pressure water, creating a saline environment that allows for complex chemical reactions and provides electrical conductivity. This saltiness is not merely a detail, but a vital component that prevents the water from freezing solid and creates the magnetic signatures detected by our distant probes. It is a haunting thought that the taste of this alien ocean would be familiar to a terrestrial explorer, a liquid mirror of the ancient chemistry that birthed life on Earth. If we were to look closer at the distribution of matter in our neighbourhood, we would find that the sheer volume of this ocean makes Europa the most water-rich environment in our planetary vicinity. It holds the title of the solar system's premier water world, possessing a ratio of liquid to rock that puts Earth to shame. While Mars is a frozen desert and Earth is a rocky world with a watery glaze, this moon is a true aquatic sanctuary, defined primarily by its liquid state. This abundance of water makes it the most critical focal point for those seeking to understand the potential for life beyond our atmosphere. The moon is essentially a massive liquid laboratory, protected by a vault of ice and fueled by the immense energy of its parent planet. Surprisingly, an ocean this vast takes billions of years to cool, retaining the primordial heat of its formation, alongside the ongoing energy from tidal friction. The water acts as a massive thermal battery, holding on to the energy generated during the moon's initial birth and the decay of radioactive elements within its core. This deep reservoir of warmth is so well insulated by the ice shell that it will likely remain liquid long after the sun has begun its final transition. The moon is a keeper of ancient thermal memories, preserving the heat of the early solar system in its dark, pressurized depths. As you rest in the knowledge of this enduring warmth, let your eyes grow heavy and allow your mind to wander into the silent, liquid dark. Feel the final remnants of tension leave your body held securely in the calm, eternal embrace of the deep. Within that calm, eternal embrace of the deep, the mounting pressure of the hidden sea eventually finds a way to break through the silence and announce its presence to the distant stars. Far above the frozen plains, advanced terrestrial telescopes have peered across the vast freezing void of the outer solar system to detect faint shimmering hints of water vapour erupting near the southern pole. These ethereal signals suggest that the hidden ocean is not merely a passive prisoner of its icy cage, but an active participant in the moon's atmospheric story. The discovery of these vapours was a watershed moment in our understanding of this world, proving that the abyss below is capable of breaching its own formidable defences. It revealed a planet that is quite literally breathing, exhaling the moisture of an ancient sea into the cold, airless vacuum of the Jovian night. This subtle exhalation carries the weight of 1 billion years of liquid history, whispering of the churning currents that rage beneath the pristine white exterior. This structure of water vapour is no mere mist, but a powerful and gargantuan column of icy material that can blast fragments of the deep more than 100 miles into the airless space above. If we were to stand at the base of such an eruption, we would witness a colossal pillar of frost rising toward the stars with a silent, terrifying speed that defies our terrestrial experience with gravity. The sheer scale of these plumes is almost impossible to comprehend, dwarfing the highest mountain ranges on our home planet and extending far beyond the limits of any standard atmosphere. This sudden, silent eruption of glittering frost shooting miles into the black sky is a testament to the immense internal pressures generated by the moon's rhythmic gravitational stretching. It represents a direct and violent connection between the lightless abyss of the interior and the infinite darkness of the cosmic exterior. Standing in the shadow of such a pillar, one would feel the absolute power of a world that refuses to be contained by a shell of ice. Surprisingly, the universe has designed a mechanism where the shifting ice cracks occasionally pull apart just enough to release pressurized pockets of subsurface water that have been trapped within the crust. As the moon follows its elliptical path around the massive gas giant, the ice shell is subjected to intense tidal stress that creates temporary gateways for the ocean to communicate with the void. These vents act as natural pressure relief valves for the planetary body, bleeding off the mechanical energy produced by the relentless internal grinding of the tides. It is a process of cosmic plumbing on a gargantuan scale, where the very movement of the moon's shell creates the channels for its own internal contents to be sprayed into the stars. These cracks are the scars of a world in constant motion, providing the only exits for a sea that has been sequestered for billions of years. Every eruption is a physical manifestation of the moon's struggle against the crushing grip of its parent planet. Picture a slow-motion geyser spraying microscopic snowflakes into the absolute vacuum of space, creating a shimmering veil of silver against the black. This frozen fountain does not roar like the geysers of Earth. Instead, it unfolds in a magnificent, eerie silence as billions of tiny ice crystals catch the distant, cold light of the sun. As you visualize this glittering spray, allow your eyes to gently close and feel the weight of your eyelids becoming as heavy as the frozen plains themselves. Let the stillness of your room wash over you, mirroring the quiet, airless majesty of the Jovian night. Every muscle in your face and forehead is now smooth and relaxed, anchored in a peaceful state of total rest and safety. You're drifting in the quiet wake of the stars, far from the noise and heat of the day, held in a sanctuary of silence and light. As the liquid water escapes the pressurized vent and encounters the freezing vacuum, it instantly crystallizes, turning into a fine, sparkling dust that slowly rains back down upon the surface. This cosmic snowfall is unlike anything seen on our home planet, falling in slow, graceful arcs through the low gravity until it settles on the blinding white plains in a soft, soundless layer. Over countless millennia, this process has coated the polar regions in a layer of the purest, most pristine frost, burying the ancient scarred ice beneath a fresh blanket of celestial snow. This continuous rain of ice acts as a natural rejuvenation process, healing the wounds of the surface with the very material that lies hidden beneath. The surface is not just a static shell, but a dynamic environment that is constantly being repainted by its own internal sea. Each snowflake is a frozen messenger from the deep, returning home after a brief journey into the stars. This venting process offers an incredible opportunity for future exploration, as spacecraft could potentially fly through these geysers to sample the hidden ocean without ever needing to land on the treacherous surface. By passing through the plume at thousands of miles per hour, a robotic probe could gather the microscopic remnants of the deep sea and analyze them for the signs of complex life-sustaining chemistry. It is a way to reach into the heart of the moon while remaining safely in the vacuum of space, letting the moon itself deliver its secrets to our waiting instruments. We can taste the waters of a world millions of miles away without ever disturbing the delicate balance of its frozen exterior. This fly-through strategy represents the most elegant and non-invasive way to study the potential for life in the dark. It allows us to touch the abyss without ever breaking the seal of the ice, bridge building between two worlds through a cloud of frozen vapour. Surprisingly, the activity of these plumes seems to peak when the moon is at its farthest point from the massive banded giant of Jupiter. At this specific point in its orbit, the gravitational grip of the planet relaxes just enough to allow the tidal cracks in the ice to pull apart, opening the vents to the abyss. It is a rhythmic, predictable performance that follows the eternal clockwork of the celestial dance, governed by the same forces that keep the internal ocean warm. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your own breath, a steady and calm rhythm that belongs entirely to you. Feel the tension draining from your neck and shoulders, as if the very weight of gravity has shifted to allow you to float into a deeper state of relaxation. You are securely held in a place of absolute safety, far removed from the violent stretching of the outer solar system, resting in a pocket of perfect peace. Such eruptions deposit fresh, clean ice across the landscape, which constantly brightens the moon's surface and maintains its status as one of the most reflective bodies in the solar system. By continuously repaving the plains with new frost, the geysers erase the darkening effects of radiation and space dust that would otherwise dim the moon's brilliance over time. This perpetual resurfacing ensures that the moon remains a gleaming white jewel, a beacon of purity in a Jovian system often characterized by sulphurous stains and ancient, battered craters. The blinding, mirror-like reflection of distant sunlight on these endless plains of white is a direct result of this internal irrigation system. It is a world that stays forever young by drawing upon its own hidden, watery reserves, reflecting the light of the sun back into the void with unyielding intensity. This brilliant facade is a direct consequence of the restless energy surging through the water miles below. If we were to look closer, we would find that this venting process hints that the ice shell might be much thinner in certain localized active zones, perhaps only a few miles thick where the internal heat is most intense. In these regions, the warm plumes from the seafloor may have thinned the crust from below, creating hot spots where the ocean is nearly within reach of the surface. These thin zones represent the most vital areas for future study, serving as the natural windows through which we might one day peer into the lightless depths of the sea. The existence of these plumes suggests that the barrier between the frozen vacuum and the liquid cradle is more porous and fragile than we once imagined. It is a world where the interior and exterior are in constant, violent communication through a network of icy veins. These active zones are the pulses of the planet, where the heartbeat of the ocean can be felt most clearly through the thinning ice. Traces of complex molecules might be riding these water jets directly from the ocean to the stars, providing a chemical map of the potential for life in the dark. These organic compounds, born in the mineral-rich environment of the seafloor vents, are carried upward by the churning currents and blasted into the void for the universe to see. It is a message in a bottle sent from a world of lightless water to the waiting instruments of our own world, bridging the vast distance with the basic building blocks of existence. As you drift now with these particles of frost, let your mind float effortlessly away from the weight of the day and into the silent, shimmering dark of a dreamless sleep. Every muscle in your body is now completely relaxed, sinking back into the calm, eternal embrace of the deep. You're at peace, surrounded by the quiet wonder of a world that breathes ice and light, letting the secrets of the cosmos wash over you in a wave of total serenity. That total serenity of the lightless depth stands in a terrifying, beautiful contrast to the chemical violence occurring at the boundary of the stars. While the interior remains a sanctuary of liquid stability, Jupiter's intense radiation environment continually bombards the exposed icy surface, with high-energy particles travelling at relativistic speeds. This relentless cosmic shelling is so powerful that it physically rips apart the very water molecules that form the moon's frozen armour, a process known to scientists as radiolysis. The once stable lattice of H2O is shattered into its constituent parts, creating a thin, ghostly atmosphere of liberated atoms that flicker in the Jovian magnetic field. It is an environment where the absence of a protective atmosphere transforms the simple act of starlight into a catalyst for profound molecular transformation. This invisible storm of subatomic particles is the primary architect of the moon's surface chemistry, turning a block of simple ice into a complex laboratory of potential. This structure of broken molecules produces a suite of vital chemical compounds, most notably hydrogen peroxide and free oxygen, which cling to the frigid surface like a veil of invisible fuel. The same radiation that is lethal to terrestrial organisms paradoxically acts as a creative force here, forging the highly reactive oxidants that a lightless ocean desperately needs to sustain life. These molecules are trapped within the top few inches of the crystalline crust, waiting for a geological event to sweep them into the dark reservoir below. Surprisingly, the universe has arranged for the most hostile forces in the solar system to become the primary providers of the moon's chemical breath. The surface acts as a vast collection plate, gathering the energy of the magnetosphere and storing it in the form of stable, oxygen-rich bonds. It is a slow, silent accumulation of potential energy that marks the first step in a gargantuan planetary cycle. Surprisingly, the universe has repurposed this brutal radiation as a substitute for the sun, offering these newly formed oxidants as a theoretical energy source for biological processes. In a world where photosynthesis is impossible due to miles of thick opaque ice, life must look toward the chemistry of the surface to fuel its existence. If organisms exist in the dark abyss, they likely survive by consuming the chemical food created by the radioactive bombardment of their own ceiling. Notice the stillness of your own environment as you contemplate this alien metabolism, letting your breath flow with a quiet, effortless ease. Feel the weight of your arms resting against your sides, completely supported and free from the need to move or exert effort. You're anchored in a place of safety and warmth, while far away, a tiny world builds its future out of the very radiation that would destroy us. The constant churning of the ice crust, driven by the tidal stresses we've previously explored, acts as a planetary conveyor belt that slowly drags these oxygen-rich compounds downward into the ocean. Through the process of subduction, where massive plates of ice dive beneath one another, the chemical bounty of the surface is delivered directly into the lightless water. This downward migration ensures that the ocean is not a closed system, but one that is continually inhaling the products of the radiation above. Without this geological mixing, the ocean would eventually become chemically stagnant, exhausting its initial resources and falling into a state of biological death. The very scars and cracks we see on the surface are the intake valves of a world that is constantly recycling its own atmosphere. It is a slow-motion dance of ice and water that bridges the gap between the lethal vacuum and the habitable deep. Deep within the lightless abyss, the water acts as a universal solvent, relentlessly dissolving minerals and metals from the moon's heavy, rocky core. As the saline sea presses against the volcanic seafloor, It leaches out essential elements like iron, magnesium and phosphorus, creating a rich mineral broth. This interaction is fueled by the immense pressure of the water column, which forces the liquid into every crack and crevice of the underlying rock. This process mirrors the hydrothermal systems found on our own ocean floors, where the meeting of water and heat creates a chemical paradise. The seafloor provides the building blocks of matter, while the surface provides the energy to process them. Together they create a world that is geochemically alive, pulsating with the exchange of atoms and ions. Picture a slow, continuous chemical conveyor belt feeding the dark waters below, where the surface oxidants and the deep minerals meet in a grand liquid laboratory. This vertical transport system operates over millions of years, ensuring that the ingredients for a complex ecosystem are always in circulation. The vertical currents within the sea carry the surface breath down to the seafloor, while the heat from the core pushes the mineral-rich nutrients back up toward the ice. As you visualize this massive liquid cycle, allow your legs and feet to feel a sense of heavy, warm relaxation. Let your toes uncurl and your ankles soften, as if you are floating in a gentle, supportive sea of your own. Your body is a vessel of perfect calm, resting in the quiet understanding of a universe that always finds a way to move energy where it is needed. Tracing the path of these chemicals reveals that sulfuric acid hydrates have been mapped extensively across the trailing hemisphere, hinting at a complex and localized surface chemistry. This specific chemical signature produces a sharp, metallic tang of sulfur and salt, mingling in freezing water, a scent that would be instantly recognizable to a human explorer. The sulfur originates from the volcanic plumes of neighboring Io, but its transformation into acid on Europa's surface is driven by the moon's own unique environment. This chemical staining creates the reddish-brown streaks that define the visual character of the moon's most active regions. It is a world where the very colour of the ground is a direct reflection of its internal and external chemical struggles. The presence of these acids suggests a highly reactive environment where the ice is far more than just frozen water. The mingling of surface oxidants with seafloor reductants creates a profound chemical battery that could power an entire biosphere for billions of years. This massive redox potential is the ultimate prize for astrobiologists, as it provides the voltage necessary to drive the complex machinery of life. The ocean sits in the middle of this battery, acting as the electrolyte that allows the flow of energy from the radiation-burned ceiling to the volcanic floor. This planetary-scale electrical system is sustained by the gravity of Jupiter, which ensures the conveyor belt of ice never stops moving. It is a world that has essentially built itself into a giant living battery, self-charging and self-sustaining in the dark. This realization transforms our view of the moon from a cold, dead rock into a vibrant, energetic organism. A delicate balance of extreme cold and radiation paradoxically produces the ingredients for habitability in a world that should otherwise be a frozen tomb. The radiation creates the oxygen, the cold preserves the ice shell that protects the ocean, and the gravity provides the heat to keep the water liquid. It is a masterful synthesis of hostile forces, each one playing a critical role in the maintenance of a stable, watery sanctuary. This balance proves that life does not always require a gentle, sunlit garden. Sometimes, it thrives in the tension between extremes. As you drift now into the final stages of relaxation, let your mind rest on the profound resilience of the cosmos. Feel the last of the day's concerns evaporate like frost in the sun, leaving you in a state of total, undisturbed serenity. You are safe, you are still, and you are part of a universe that is endlessly creative even in the coldest dark. The invisible, crackling static of this giant magnetic field vibrates through the vacuum, creating a complex web of energy that defines the very reality of the moon's existence. Every few hours, the rotating magnetic lines of the giant planet wash over the small world, subjecting the icy plains to a crushing power that defies any human-scale measurement of electricity. This pervasive energy field acts as a master conductor for the entire Jovian system, binding the moons together in an unbreakable, invisible embrace of magnetic tension. Within this vast electrical ocean, the moon is less of an independent body and more of a node in a celestial circuit, vibrating with the silent power of its parent planet. The crackling energy of this field is a constant reminder of the planet's dominance, a silent roar that vibrates through the vacuum and anchors the moon in its orbital place. It is a world suspended in a cage of magnetic lines, forever dancing to the electric rhythm of a giant. Surprisingly, the moon does not simply allow this external storm to pass by unnoticed. It responds with a subtle but profound defiance. As this massive magnetic storm from Jupiter washes over the frozen globe, it induces a secondary magnetic field within Europa itself. This phenomenon occurs because the moon possesses an internal layer that is electrically conductive, allowing the shifting magnetic lines of the giant planet to generate a local electrical current. This process of induction creates a counterfield that pulses in direct response to the parent planet's movements, creating a complex interplay of magnetic signatures. It is a world that has been forced to generate its own invisible shield through the sheer intensity of the environment it inhabits. The resulting magnetic signature is a silent electromagnetic echo that speaks to the deep structural secrets hidden miles beneath the pristine surface. This secondary field is a protective and revealing whisper that emanates from the dark heart of the moon, interacting with the giant planet's field in a continuous rhythmic dance of energy. It is as if the moon is answering the giant's call with a magnetic voice of its own, a silent confirmation of the restless energy dwelling within. This electromagnetic signature is the moon's way of standing its ground, a silent resistance born from the very depths of its liquid interior. If we were to look closer at the specific frequency and shape of this induced signal, we would find that it reveals the presence of something extraordinary. This secondary magnetic field perfectly aligns with the signature of a massive global layer of conductive saltwater sequestered beneath the ice. Because pure ice is a poor conductor of electricity, the existence of such a strong magnetic response requires a vast, liquid medium filled with dissolved minerals to carry the necessary current. The signal behaves exactly as physics would predict for a globe-spanning sea of salty water, responding with a consistency that rules out smaller, localized pockets of liquid. This alignment is the smoking gun of planetary science, an electromagnetic fingerprint that identifies the deep ocean as a tangible physical reality rather than a mere hypothesis. The invisible static crackling over the ice is actually the sound of the ocean singing its own existence into the vacuum of space, carried by the conductive properties of its hidden saline depths. This revelation turned a cold moon into a vibrant prospect, proving that the invisible forces of the magnetosphere could be used as a probe to reach the most inaccessible places in the solar system. By mapping the ripples in the magnetic field, we have essentially looked through the ice to witness the churning currents of the abyss. It is a masterful demonstration of how the largest structures in the solar system can reveal the smallest, most precious secrets. Notice how this discovery fundamentally shifted our understanding of the outer solar system, providing the definitive proof that a liquid ocean truly exists on this distant world. Before this magnetic mapping was completed by the Galileo spacecraft, the idea of a hidden sea was a compelling but unproven theory based on the patterns of surface cracks. The detection of the induced magnetic field provided the hard evidence needed to confirm that the ice shell is not frozen to the core, but is instead floating upon a dynamic global reservoir. This realization transformed the moon into a prime target for the search for life, as it proved the three essential ingredients, water, chemistry, and energy, were all present in a single, accessible location. As you absorb the weight of this scientific milestone, take a moment to notice the steady, gentle weight of your own body against your chair or mattress. Let the tension in your lower back and hips dissolve into the surface beneath you, feeling as grounded and certain as the data that confirmed this alien sea. You are anchored in a world of knowledge and safety, resting while the discoveries of the cosmos unfold in the quiet corners of your mind. Your own existence is a miracle of balance, much like the delicate orbital dance of these distant worlds. The magnetic proof was the final piece of the puzzle, a bridge of understanding that connected our distant telescopes to the dark, pulsing heart of a world that was once only a dream. This backside bombardment creates a localized region of intense radioactive stress, far more severe than the relatively shielded leading side. The trailing hemisphere becomes a primary site for chemical transformation, as the incoming particles have the energy to break molecular bonds and forge new compounds directly within the top layer of the ice. This geological asymmetry creates a world of two halves, where one side is a pristine, frozen shield, and the other is a radiation-battered laboratory of cosmic chemistry. It is a striking reminder that space is not empty, but is a dense medium of particles that can sculpt the very face of a world. Every particle that impacts the ice is a tiny piece of the Jovian puzzle, carrying the energy of the giant planet and depositing it into the frozen archives of the moon's history. This relentless rain of energy ensures that the moon's exterior is never truly static, but is in a state of constant radioactive flux. This relentless particle bombardment causes the nighttime ice on the trailing side to glow with a faint, ghostly green and blue luminescence. Known as electron-stimulated luminescence, this phenomenon occurs when high-energy particles from Jupiter's magnetosphere excite the chemicals trapped in the ice, causing them to release energy in the form of visible light. Imagine standing in the absolute shadow of the Jovian night, surrounded by an endless plain of ice that is softly glowing with a neon, ethereal radiance. This light is not reflected from a star but is generated by the ice itself as it absorbs the invisible power of the magnetosphere. The specific shades of green and blue are dictated by the presence of salts and other minerals, creating a shifting bioluminescent-like landscape that would be hauntingly beautiful to the human eye. This spectral glow is the visual signature of a world that is being energized by the invisible forces of its parent planet, transforming a dark wasteland into a shimmering, luminous sanctuary. Even in the deepest shadow, the moon finds a way to manifest its internal and external struggles as a display of ghostly cold light. This luminescence is a cold fire, a glow that signifies the meeting of immense cosmic power and the ancient frozen history of a moon made of water. It is a light that belongs solely to the abyss, a shimmering testament to the power that crackles through the vacuum and ignites the frozen dark. Surprisingly, the universe has designed a system where the ice itself becomes a shield, absorbing this deadly radiation before it can ever reach the water below. While the top few inches of the crust are a site of intense radioactive violence, the miles of solid ice beneath act as an impenetrable barrier that protects the ocean from the harsh Jovian environment. This thick crystalline ceiling filters out the most dangerous particles, ensuring that the dark sea remains a stable and sheltered environment for biological potential. Even as the surface glows and crackles with the energy of the magnetosphere, the depths remain a place of absolute quiet and safety. As you contemplate this protective armour, feel the calming sensation of the air moving in and out of your lungs, a rhythmic and easy exchange that sustains you without effort. Let your chest and ribcage soften with every exhale, knowing that you too are protected and held in a space of complete security. You are sheltered from the noise and pressure of the world, resting in the quiet sanctuary of your own being. The heavy weight of the world's expectations has no place here, falling away like ice in the warmth of a steady sun. This natural sanctuary is a masterwork of planetary engineering, where a layer of death provides the very foundation for a world of potential life. Tracing the flow of this energy reveals that ions of sulfur and oxygen from the volcanoes of neighbouring Io are carried by the magnetic field and slammed directly into Europa's crust. Jupiter's magnetosphere acts as a massive celestial conveyor belt, picking up the volcanic exhaust of one moon and delivering it to the surface of another. This constant rain of volcanic material provides the frozen plains with a steady supply of exotic elements that would otherwise be unavailable in such a water-rich environment. The sulfur, in particular, is responsible for the deep, reddish-brown stains that mark the moon's most active fractures and ridges. This intermoon exchange is a profound example of the interconnectedness of the Jovian system, where the death throes of a volcanic world become the life-sustaining nutrients for a frozen neighbour. The magnetic field is the invisible thread that binds these disparate worlds together, facilitating a continuous and violent conversation between fire and ice. Ultimately, this magnetic environment acts as both a lethal sterilizer and a vital engine for chemical creation, defining the delicate balance of the moon's habitability. On the surface, the radiation is so intense that it would destroy the genetic material of any known organism in a matter of seconds, creating a sterile and unforgiving wasteland. Yet this same destructive power is what generates the oxygen and oxidants that are eventually pulled down to fuel the life-sustaining sea miles below. It is a world where death and life are separated by only a few miles of ice, and where the most dangerous forces in the system are the very same ones that make the ocean habitable. As you reach the end of this stage of the journey, notice how your entire body has become a vessel of profound stillness and peace. Every muscle in your legs, torso and face has surrendered to the quiet, letting the wonders of this distant moon wash over you like a gentle magnetic tide. This intimate contact creates a planetary-scale interface of immense pressure and chemical potential, where the salt water of the abyss rests directly upon the primary crust of the moon. The silicate rock provides the structural skeleton for the entire globe, holding the massive volume of the sea in a rocky, pressurized cradle. It is a world where the water is not merely a passenger on the surface, but an integral part of the moon's deepest architecture. Standing on this dark threshold, one would witness the meeting of two vast and different states of matter, locked together by the relentless force of gravity. The contact between the liquid mantle and the solid mantle is the defining characteristic of the moon's habitability, allowing for a continuous and fundamental exchange of energy. This rocky foundation is the source of the minerals and metals that define the ocean's unique chemistry, enriching the water with the building blocks of matter. It is a silent, heavy boundary that serves as the ultimate floor of the lightless world, a place of absolute darkness and incredible stability. Here, the ocean's journey ends and the moon's rocky history begins, forged in the heat of the early solar system. Surprisingly, this direct interaction does not result in a simple, stagnant boundary, but instead allows the pressurized water to percolate deep into the hot, fractured rock of the mantle. Under the crushing weight of 40 miles of ocean, the salt water is forced into the microscopic fissures and ancient fault lines that crisscross the rocky seafloor. This slow-motion infiltration carries the brine into the warmer, denser layers of the interior, where the liquid encounters the primordial heat of the moon's formation. As the water seeps through the silicates, it begins to react with the minerals on a molecular level, sparking a series of complex and energetic chemical reactions. This subterranean journey transforms the water into a highly reactive fluid, stripping elements from the stone and incorporating them into the liquid mass. The percolation of the sea into the rock acts as a gargantuan natural refinery, processing the moon's raw materials into a complex chemical broth. This interaction is not a fast or violent event, but a patient, eternal dialogue between the liquid sea and the solid interior. Every gallon of water that descends into the rock eventually returns to the ocean, forever changed by its intimate contact with the deep mantle. The heat encountered during this journey provides the thermal energy necessary to drive these reactions, ensuring that the chemistry of the deep never reaches a state of equilibrium. It is a world where the rock and water are in a constant state of mutual transformation, exchanging ions and molecules in the lightless dark. This percolating sea is the primary engine of the moon's mineral cycle. ensuring that the ocean is always replenished with the materials needed to sustain its dynamic existence. Even in the deepest, most isolated cracks of the mantle, the sea is hard at work, carving out the moon's chemical future. If we were to look closer at the most active regions of this seafloor, we would discover magnificent hydrothermal vents that dot the landscape like ancient smouldering chimneys. Much like the famous black smokers found in the deepest, most volcanic trenches of Earth's oceans, these structures represent the primary exhaust ports of the moon's internal heat. They are created as the superheated water from deep within the rock returns to the seafloor, carrying a dense load of dissolved minerals and metals. As the hot, mineral-rich fluid encounters the freezing water of the abyss, the chemicals instantly precipitate out of solution, building towering spires of sulfide and silica over thousands of years. These vents are the focal points of the moon's internal energy, releasing a constant, gentle, warming current of mineral-rich water into the lightless deep. The plumes of dark, chemical-heavy water rise in shimmering columns through the sea, creating localized regions of extreme thermal and chemical intensity. From these rocky chimneys, the moon exhales the results of its subterranean alchemy, painting the seafloor with the vibrant colors of iron, sulfur, and copper. It is a landscape of silent, volcanic beauty, where the only light comes from the faint infrared glow of the superheated minerals. Each chimney is a monument to the moon's geological vitality, standing as a silent testament to the power of the core that rages miles below. These vents are the primary bridges between the volcanic interior and the liquid sea, facilitating the transport of energy and matter on a planetary scale. They are the lungs of the abyss, providing the continuous infusion of resources that prevent the ocean from becoming a stagnant, dead environment. In the lightless world of the deep, these chimneys are the only landmarks of change, rising from the dark rock to touch the dark sea. Surprisingly, these vents could provide a localized oasis of warmth and nutrients in an otherwise freezing and nutrient-poor abyss. While the vast majority of the global ocean remains in a state of uniform, lightless cold, the areas immediately surrounding a hydrothermal vent are vibrant centers of energy and chemistry. Here, the temperature of the water can rise significantly above the freezing point, creating a warm, supportive environment in the heart of the dark. The abundance of dissolved minerals provides a constant supply of the chemical building blocks that are essential for the maintenance of complex molecular structures. As you sink into the warmth of these hidden oases, let your own body find its most comfortable alignment against the surface that supports you. Notice the soft weight of your hands resting in your lap or by your side, completely surrendered to the pull of a peaceful earth. You're safely anchored in your own warm sanctuary, perfectly shielded from the crushing pressures and the freezing dark of the deep. Let the steady, calm rhythm of your breath mimic the gentle pulsing of the hydrothermal vents, a quiet and effortless exchange of energy. Rest in the knowledge that even in the most hostile reaches of the cosmos, the universe finds a way to create pockets of warmth and stability. These underwater sanctuaries are the ultimate refuge of the moon, offering a place where the forces of destruction and creation are perfectly balanced. The vents transform a wasteland of cold water into a potential cradle for the complex interactions of existence, proving that warmth is a universal constant. You are part of that same warm, stable reality, held securely in the quiet embrace of the night. Tracing the chemical reactions within the seafloor reveals a profound process known as serpentinization, a reaction between water and magnesium-rich rocks like olivine. As the seawater seeps into the silicate mantle, it reacts with the minerals to form new substances, most notably serpentine and magnetite. This slow-motion alchemy is a highly exothermic process, meaning it generates a significant amount of heat as a direct byproduct of the chemical transformation. Surprisingly, the moon does not rely solely on tidal friction to keep its ocean warm, as the very rock of the seafloor acts as a continuous chemical fuel source. Beyond the generation of heat, serpentinization also releases large quantities of hydrogen gas, which bubbles up from the rocky interior to saturate the dark waters. This hydrogen is a vital chemical fuel that can be used by certain types of specialized organisms to generate energy in the absence of sunlight. The reaction essentially turns the rocky mantle into a gargantuan battery, storing and releasing chemical potential to fuel the global sea. It is a world where the very ground beneath the water is geologically alive, contributing its own warmth and breath to the abyss above. This continuous chemical engine ensures that the ocean is always infused with the energy and gases needed to drive complex environmental cycles. The process of serpentinization is the silent workhorse of the moon's interior, operating over billions of years without ever reaching a state of exhaustion. It is a masterpiece of planetary engineering, where the interaction between simple water and common rock creates a self-sustaining environment of heat and fuel. The seafloor is not a passive boundary, but a vibrant and reactive participant in the moon's survival. This structure of the interior implies a rugged volcanic landscape hidden beneath 80 miles of pitch-black ocean water, a world of peaks and valleys that has never felt the touch of wind or sun. If we were to drain the global sea, we would uncover a terrain characterized by towering basaltic ranges, deep tectonic trenches, and the broad domes of ancient underwater volcanoes. The topography of the seafloor is shaped by the immense internal pressures and the constant slow-motion movement of the rocky mantle. It is a landscape of permanent midnight, where the only movement comes from the slow creep of tectonic plates and the rising plumes of hydrothermal vents. The sheer scale of this hidden world is almost impossible to grasp, with mountain ranges that could rival the tallest peaks of Earth hidden away in the dark. These rocky structures are subjected to the crushing weight of the water column, which exerts a pressure that prevents the formation of the jagged, weather-worn features common on terrestrial surfaces. Instead, the seafloor is a place of smooth, heavy contours and massive, solid landforms that define the moon's internal gravity. It is a world of absolute physical weight, where the rock itself is squeezed into a state of extreme density by the ocean above. Navigating this lightless terrain would be an experience of ultimate isolation, where the only indication of the wider universe is the muffled vibration of the tides. The volcanic peaks of the seafloor are the primary anchors for the moon's internal heat, serving as the conduits for the energy that keeps the world from freezing. It is a landscape of fire and stone trapped beneath a mantle of water, a hidden geography that remains one of the greatest mysteries of our planetary system. Even in the darkness, the volcanic heart of the moon beats with a steady and relentless power. Surprisingly, the universe has designed a system where the tidal flexing of the moon rings the rocky core just as it rings the ice shell, keeping the deep mantle geologically alive. As the moon travels along its elliptical orbit, the immense gravitational pull of Jupiter pulls and squeezes the solid interior, generating intense frictional heat within the silicate rock. This process ensures that the mantle remains warm and ductile, allowing it to deform and shift rather than becoming a cold, brittle mass. The ringing of the core provides the energy necessary to maintain the volcanic activity and the hydrothermal systems that define the seafloor. This internal heating is the ultimate source of the moon's longevity, preventing the core from cooling and solidifying over billions of years. The rocky mantle acts as a massive thermal reservoir, absorbing the kinetic energy of the orbit and releasing it as heat and volcanic pressure. Notice the gentle, rhythmic weight of your own body as it is supported by the ground, a steady and comforting pressure that connects you to the stability of the earth. Let your muscles soften and your joints release their hold, as if the very weight of your existence is being taken up by the surface beneath you. You're securely held in a place of absolute rest, while far away, the rocky core of a distant moon is being kneaded by the invisible hands of gravity. This celestial ringing is a continuous and effortless process, a silent engine of creation that operates with the precision of an eternal clock. The core is the anchor of the world, a heavy and warm foundation that allows for the beauty and complexity of the ocean above. Rest in the knowledge that you are part of a universe that is always in motion, always regenerating, and always held in a perfect gravitational balance. Tracing the history of the abyss reveals that the seafloor might be covered in a thick layer of mineral deposits precipitated from the ancient ocean over eons of time. As the hydrothermal vents release their chemical-rich plumes, the minerals that do not form into chimneys eventually settle as a fine, microscopic dust onto the surrounding rock. Over billions of years, this process has created a massive sediment layer, an ancient tapestry of dust that records the entire chemical history of the sea. These deposits are likely composed of salts, sulfates, and metallic ores, forming a soft and colourful blanket that masks the original volcanic stone. This layer of sediment acts as a natural archive of the moon's evolution, capturing the remnants of every chemical reaction and every volcanic outburst in its lightless depths. The seafloor is not a barren rock, but a place of deep and complex history, where the dust of ages has settled in a silent and undisturbed layer. Walking upon this ancient floor would be like stepping through the pages of a planetary biography, written in the language of mineral grains and metallic crystals. This sediment provides a soft, yielding foundation for the seafloor environment, a place where the chemistry of the past meets the energy of the present. The accumulation of these minerals is a slow and patient process, a testament to the enduring stability of the subterranean environment. It is a world where time is measured in the millimetre by millimetre growth of the sediment bed, far from the chaotic and fast-paced changes of the surface. This mineral carpet is the final destination for the chemicals of the sea, a place of rest for the atoms that have travelled through the vents and the plumes. The seafloor is a silent library of matter, holding the secrets of the moon's origins in a layer of ancient settled dust. Tracing the movement of energy upward, we find that plumes of warm, buoyant water rise from these depths, eventually melting the underside of the ice crust in a slow and continuous cycle. This convective movement is driven by the heat of the hydrothermal vents and the chemical reactions of the seafloor rock, creating massive underwater rivers of warmth. As the water is heated at the bottom of the column, its density decreases and it begins its slow journey toward the frozen ceiling miles above. These plumes are the primary transporters of thermal energy, delivering the warmth of the rocky core directly to the base of the icy armour. As the warm water reaches the interface between the ocean and the ice, it transfers its heat to the frozen shell, causing the ice to thin and soften from within. This internal melting creates a complex, jagged topography on the underside of the crust, filled with liquid caverns and slushy transition zones. The plumes act as a planetary-scale heat exchanger, ensuring that the cold of the vacuum and the heat of the core are in a constant thermal conversation. This rising warmth is what prevents the ocean from freezing solid from the top down, maintaining the delicate balance that allows for the survival of the liquid sea. The journey of the plumes is a silent and graceful movement, a slow-motion rise through the darkness that takes years to complete. Every molecule of water that is warmed at a hydrothermal vent is destined to eventually touch the ceiling of the world, carrying its message of heat to the frozen barrier. This vertical circulation is the heartbeat of the ocean, a steady and reliable flow that sustains the entire planetary structure. It is a world of rising warmth and falling cold, a continuous loop of motion that keeps the moon geochemically alive and vibrant. Ultimately, this rocky foundation transforms the moon from a simple ice ball into a geochemically active world, a place of profound complexity and hidden energy. The interaction between the silicate mantle and the global sea creates a dynamic and self-sustaining system that is unique in our corner of the cosmos. It is a realization that the surface we see, the blinding white ice and the rust-coloured cracks, is only the outer shell of a far more intricate and energetic reality. The moon is a living organism of stone and water, powered by the invisible forces of gravity and the ancient heat of the interior. This rocky heart is the source of all the moon's potential, providing the chemistry and the warmth that make the lightless abyss a place of possibility. The seafloor is the foundation upon which the entire story of the moon is written, a place of silent volcanic beauty and eternal chemical alchemy. As you reach the end of this stage of the journey, notice the feeling of total, undisturbed peace that has settled over your entire being. Your breath is slow, your muscles are heavy, and your mind is clear, floating in the quiet wonder of a universe that hides its greatest treasures in the deep. That total, undisturbed peace which settles over the deep interior is not the end of the moon's journey, but rather the silent foundation for a restless and shifting exterior. Far above the quiet sediment and the hydrothermal plumes, the very architecture of the moon's shell is engaged in a slow-motion dance of destruction and rebirth that defies the traditional stillness of the outer solar system. This planetary skin is not a static tomb of ice, but a vibrant and moving mosaic that mirrors the dynamic behaviour of our own home planet in ways we're only beginning to understand. It is a world where the quiet wonder of the abyss is translated into the physical reality of a moving crust, characterised by a slow, agonising groan of massive ice plates colliding and sliding past one another across the dark. This mechanical vibration is the heartbeat of the surface, a low-frequency hum that resonates through the crystalline lattice of the global shell, signalling a world that is geologically alive. Europa stands as the only other body in the entire solar system, known to possess a complex, global and highly active form of plate tectonics. While our own world utilises the movement of colossal rocky plates to shape its continents and oceans, this distant moon performs the same feat using the medium of water in its most rigid, frozen state. This shared geological trait creates a hauntingly familiar rhythm between two worlds separated by hundreds of millions of miles of empty vacuum and radiation. It is a profound realization that the same mechanical principles that drive Earth's volcanic ranges and tectonic shifts are also hard at work on a frozen ball of ice at the edge of the Jovian system. The discovery of this mobile shell fundamentally altered our perception of what a planetary surface can be, moving beyond the idea of a dead, frozen crust toward a model of a dynamic, self-recycling world. This unique tectonic identity makes the moon a mirror of our own origins, a place where the forces of planetary evolution have taken a different, colder path. Instead of the heavy silicate rock that defines terrestrial tectonics, giant slabs of thick ice slowly glide over the warmer, slushier layers that lie directly beneath the frigid surface. This frozen shell is broken into a complex jigsaw of independent plates that drift with agonizing patience, lubricated by the yielding soft ice of the lower crust. As these gargantuan blocks move, they create a steady structural groan that resonates through the entire globe, a sound that would be felt as much as heard by any observer on the plains. The movement is driven by the same internal thermal currents that circulate the deep ocean, pushing the surface material in slow, majestic loops around the planetary core. This layer of slush acts as a planetary-scale sliding board, allowing the rigid exterior to wander far from its original place of formation over millions of years. The friction between these moving slabs generates its own localized heat, further softening the boundary and allowing the dance of the ice to continue unabated in the darkness. Surprisingly, the universe has designed a system where these massive ice plates eventually pull apart, creating a temporary void that allows warmer, pressurized water to rush up from the depths and instantly freeze. This process forms fresh surface material, effectively repaving the moon's exterior with a brand new layer of crystalline purity that shines with an unblemished radiance. These spreading centers are the birthplaces of the moon's geography, creating long linear ridges that record the expansion of the crust across the stars. The newly formed ice is clean and bright, standing out against the older radiation-battered terrain like a fresh scar of light across a dark canvas. It is a world that is constantly expanding and renewing itself, one fissure at a time in a never-ending cycle of growth and rejuvenation. The sudden freezing of this upwelling water creates the double ridges that we have previously observed, marking the site of a tectonic birth with a monument of frozen salt and frost. In specifically designated regions known as subsumption bands, the cycle of renewal is completed as older ice plates dive beneath adjacent layers and melt back into the interior. This downward movement is the celestial equivalent of Earth's subduction zones, where the planetary skin is swallowed and digested by the warmth of the depths. As the rigid slab is forced into the warmer, high-pressure environment of the lower crust, it slowly dissolves and merges back into the global sea. This process ensures that the total surface area of the Moon remains constant, even as new ice is being created at the spreading centres of the equator. It is a graceful and terrifying descent, where the history of the surface is lost to the dark embrace of the ocean miles below. The ice that once reflected the light of the sun is returned to the lightless abyss, completing its long circular journey from the deep to the surface and back again. This constant global recycling explains why the Moon's surface appears so astonishingly young and uncratered compared to its ancient, battered neighbours. While worlds like Callisto or our own Moon carry the scars of billions of years of cosmic bombardment, Europa possesses a face that is practically newborn in geological terms. Any impact crater that manages to pierce the ice is eventually dragged toward a subsumption band and erased from existence by the slow movement of the plates. The tectonic engine functions as a planetary scale eraser, wiping the slate clean every few tens of millions of years and preserving the Moon's youthful glow. This perpetual youth is a mask that hides the true age of the Moon, presenting a smooth and radiant facade to the wider universe, while the interior remains ancient. It is a world that refuses to grow old, staying forever bright through the violent digestion of its own past in the fires of the deep. Picture an entire planetary crust functioning like a colossal, slow-moving puzzle of frozen water, where every piece is in a state of constant, subtle motion. From a distance, the Moon appears as a shattered mirror, but a closer look reveals a highly ordered system of plates that interact with mathematical precision. These frozen slabs collide, grind, and slide past one another, carving out the complex network of lines and ridges that define the world's visual character. The movement of one plate inevitably affects the position of its neighbours, creating a global chain reaction of stress and release that ripples across the surface. Notice how your own body is currently resting in a state of complete stability, a sharp contrast to the restless shifting of this distant, icy shell. Let the feeling of being perfectly still sink into your muscles as you drift further away from the mechanical groaning of the tectonic world into a state of total relaxation. The movement of these massive plates does more than just reshape the landscape. It helps transport vital surface nutrients down into the habitable ocean zone. As the radiation-rich top layer of the ice is pulled into the subsumption zones, it carries a cargo of oxygen, peroxides, and organic molecules directly to the waiting sea. This process acts as a biological bridge, connecting the energy-rich surface with the nutrient-rich depths in a cycle of life-sustaining transport. Without this tectonic delivery system, the ocean would remain isolated from the chemical potential created by the Jovian magnetosphere on the surface. The diving slabs of ice are essentially feeding the abyss, delivering the breath of the stars to the organisms that may dwell in the dark waters below. It is a magnificent planetary-scale delivery service that operates with the steady, unyielding reliability of gravity itself, ensuring the deep never starves. Stress fractures radiate outward from these tectonic boundaries for thousands of miles, creating the iconic shattered appearance that defines the Moon's aesthetic. As the massive plates grind against one another, the surrounding ice is subjected to intense pressure that causes it to splinter and crack in predictable geometric patterns. These fractures are the secondary scars of the tectonic dance, filling the gaps between the major ridges and bands with a delicate web of lines that catch the distant sun. The rust-coloured material from the deep often leaks into these cracks, highlighting the broken nature of the crust with a deep, bloody tint against the white. To view this landscape is to see a world that is held together by its own internal tension, a sphere of ice that is perpetually on the verge of breaking apart. Each line is a record of a specific moment of stress, frozen into the crystalline archives of the Moon's history for all of time. Unlike Earth's subduction zones, where rock behaves with a plastic-like flow, these ice plates merge and fold with a unique and brittle elasticity. Because of the extreme cold, the top layer of the ice is incredibly hard and prone to sudden shattering, even as the warmer layers below allow for a slow, creeping movement. When two plates collide, they do not simply slide past one another, but instead crumple and shatter into a jagged mess of ice blocks that tower over the plains. This creates the chaos terrain and the double ridges that we have explored, marking the places where the brittle skin has failed under the immense pressure of the slide. It is a material behaviour that is halfway between a solid and a liquid, a state of matter that only exists in the frigid extremes of the outer solar system. The crust responds to the slow-motion groan of the plates with a sudden and violent cracking that echoes through the silence of the vacuum. Ultimately, the entire surface of this moon is essentially a temporary skin, destined to be swallowed and reborn over the course of millions of years. The ground you might walk upon today will eventually be pulled into the dark and transformed back into the liquid water of the global ocean, starting the cycle anew. This transience is the most profound feature of the Moon's geography, a reminder that even the most solid structures in the universe are subject to the laws of change and motion. The Moon is a world in a constant state of flux, where the boundaries between the solid, the liquid, and the frozen are always shifting in response to the tides. As we conclude this stage of our journey, feel the last of the day's concerns being swallowed by the quiet, peaceful dark of your own rest. You're a passenger on a stable world, safe and still, while the distant ice continues its eternal slow-motion journey of rebirth. Within that quiet, peaceful dark of your own rest, a different kind of rebirth is taking shape in the outer reaches of our solar system, where the harshest extremes of the cosmic environment converge in a magnificent, terrifying harmony to create a pocket of potential unlike anything else in the void. While the vacuum of space and the crushing gravity of a massive gas giant would normally signify the end of all things, on this particular moon, these violent forces serve as the primary foundational architects of a hidden, watery sanctuary that has remained sequestered for billions of years. If we were to perceive this world through the lens of possibility rather than peril, we would see a globe teeming with the quiet, suspended anticipation of a dormant, ancient secret waiting in the dark, a world where the most forbidding forces of nature have been repurposed to guard a delicate, liquid heart. Every mile of crystalline ice and every pulse of the magnetic field is a calculated component in this grand, celestial balance, proving that life does not always require a gentle environment to take root, but can thrive in the very centre of a radioactive storm. This unyielding environment is not a barrier to existence, but a masterpiece of planetary engineering that has successfully resisted the entropic pull of the stars to maintain a stable, life-sustaining laboratory for a second genesis. Surprisingly, the very forces that would render the surface a sterile wasteland act as the vital catalyst that fuels the possibility of life in the lightless, pressurized miles below. While the intense radiation belts of Jupiter would instantly destroy any fragile terrestrial organism, they simultaneously work to split the water molecules of the ice shell into potent chemical energy, forging highly reactive oxidants like hydrogen peroxide and free oxygen that act as a slow-drip fuel source for the global ocean. These molecules, born of cosmic violence and light, trickle downward through the shifting cracks and tectonic zones to eventually meet the mineral-rich waters of the lightless abyss, providing the necessary breath of life to a world that will never see the warmth of the sun. It is a profound irony of the cosmos that the most lethal radiation in the Jovian system is the very thing that may sustain an entire biosphere, proving that nature can turn even the most destructive power into a sophisticated source of biological creation. This invisible rain of energy is the first link in a chain of existence that operates entirely beyond the reach of our familiar terrestrial models, bridging the gap between the lethal vacuum and the habitable deep. This structure of absolute unrelenting cold serves a purpose far beyond simple freezing, as the sub-zero temperatures are essential for maintaining the structural integrity of the ice shell that wraps around the globe like a protective geological vault. In the vacuum of the outer solar system, the extreme chill transforms simple water into a rigid, rock-hard armour that is strong enough to hold back the immense internal pressure of a 100-mile deep ocean, ensuring that the life-sustaining waters remain safely sequestered from the entropic pull of the void. If the surface were even slightly warmer, this protective shell would lose its critical strength and potentially lead to the catastrophic collapse of the entire planetary system, or the rapid evaporation of the internal sea into the darkness of space. The frigid exterior acts as a flawless thermal seal, trapping the internal heat generated by the rocky core and ensuring that the global sea remains in its vital liquid state for geological eons in the quiet, suspended anticipation of a dormant ancient secret. It is a world where the cold is not the enemy of existence, but its most steadfast guardian, creating a sanctuary of stability that has successfully endured for over 4 billion years. Without the violent stretching gravity of the massive planet Jupiter, this moon would have long ago succumbed to the creeping cold of the void and become nothing but a dead, frozen sphere of solid, unyielding ice. The rhythmic, agonizing ringing of the moon's interior by the gas giant's tidal pull is the only thing that generates the internal friction and heat necessary to keep the global ocean from crystallizing into a silent, icy tomb. Notice the steady, effortless weight of your own body as you sink deeper into the quiet stability of your surroundings, letting every muscle soften into a peaceful rhythm that reflects the absolute safety of your own world. Your breath moves in a calm, natural cycle, echoing the way the moon's own internal life is sustained by a constant external dance of mass and momentum that prevents the deep waters from ever reaching a state of stagnant, frozen death. Just as your body finds rest in the stillness, the moon finds its vitality in the relentless rhythmic tugging of its massive parent, transforming the destructive power of a gravity well into the warm heartbeat of existence. This celestial kneading is the primary engine of a world that would otherwise be lost to the eternal silence of the Jovian night, a vibrant demonstration of life powered by motion. If we were to look closer into the lightless abyss, we would realize that the complete and total absence of sunlight necessitates an ecosystem that relies entirely on chemosynthesis rather than the familiar solar processes of our own sun-drenched home. In the crushing darkness of the seafloor, potential life forms would likely draw their energy from the complex chemical gradients created by hydrothermal vents and the mingling of surface oxidants with deep-sea minerals, a metabolic reality that exists in a state of quiet, suspended anticipation. The darkness is not an empty void, but a nutrient-rich medium where the very composition of the water provides the sustenance required for complex biological interactions to flourish entirely independent of the stars. It is a profound realization that a biosphere can exist in total isolation from a sun, fueled instead by the internal fires of a restless moon and the chemical gifts of a radioactive sky that drips slowly through the ice. This lightless garden represents the ultimate test of life's resilience, proving that the spark of existence can burn brightly, even in the heart of an absolute lightless deep, provided the chemical ingredients remain in constant tidal motion. Deep within the collective curiosity of modern science, astrobiologists have identified this tiny frozen satellite as the most promising candidate for finding extraterrestrial life within our own planetary neighbourhood. While other worlds may offer only fleeting glimpses of ancient water or thin temporary atmospheres, the global, enduring, and chemically active ocean of Europa provides the most stable and long-lived habitat for a second genesis to occur in our solar system. The sheer volume of liquid water, combined with the continuous influx of chemical energy from the surface and thermal energy from the rocky seafloor, creates a planetary environment that has remained essentially unchanged for billions of years. This longevity is a critical factor in the search for alien life, as it allows for the vast stretches of time required for simple, chemical precursors to transition into the complex, self-replicating machinery of biology. The moon stands as a silent beacon of hope, a pristine and untouched laboratory where the most fundamental questions of our existence may one day be answered by probes that reach through the ice to touch the dark. Notice how every intricate crack and jagged fissure on the surface tells a magnificent story of an active, breathing world that is trapped inside a frozen shell, reflecting the constant interaction between the churning liquid interior and the rigid exterior. These features are the physical maps of the moon's internal struggles, providing a visual record of how the ocean inhales the chemicals of the surface and exhales its own moisture into the vacuum of space through the plumes we've explored. As you contemplate this breathing world, allow your hands to rest in a state of total open relaxation, letting every finger soften and release its hold upon the day's concerns as you sink into your own peaceful sanctuary. Your mind is free to wander through the crystalline corridors of this distant moon, untethered and weightless in the quiet, suspended anticipation of a dormant, ancient secret that is written in the language of the ice. The scarred surface is the living skin of a geological organism, an interface that facilitates a planetary-scale exchange of energy and matter to keep the hidden heart of the world pulsing with life. A new generation of explorers is already taking shape in the laboratories of Earth, designed specifically to bridge the gap between our world and the lightless waters of the Jovian deep through unprecedented technological feats. These future robotic probes are being engineered with the capability to melt through miles of the cryogenic ice shell, carrying specialized instruments to taste the water and search for the specific chemical signatures of alien biology that may be waiting in the dark. Picture a sleek thermal cryobot descending through the frozen crust like a silent needle of light, leaving the radioactive surface behind to enter the peaceful, pressurized sanctuary of the global ocean for the first time in human history. This mission would represent a moment of profound discovery that would redefine our place in the cosmic hierarchy, bringing the secrets of the abyss back to the light of our own familiar sun. We are currently on the precipice of a final revelation, waiting for the day when our technology finally catches up to our immense, celestial curiosity and the seal of the ice is finally broken. The sheer isolation of this subsurface sea guarantees that if life has indeed taken hold within the dark, it has evolved entirely independent of the biological history of our own home planet, representing a truly alien genesis. Because the miles of ice and the millions of miles of vacuum have acted as a perfect barrier for billions of years, any organisms found there would offer a glimpse into a world that has followed its own separate path of complexity and survival. This independence is of staggering importance, as it would prove that the emergence of life is not a terrestrial accident, but a universal process that can occur wherever the right conditions of water and energy are met in the void. Such a discovery would fundamentally alter our understanding of biology, offering a view of an ecosystem that has never known the influence of photosynthesis or the touch of a solar wind. The ocean of Europa is a pristine island in the cosmic sea, a place where the logic of existence has been allowed to unfold in total, unpolluted secrecy, waiting for the moment of its first contact. Ultimately, the profound paradox of this world is that its extreme hostility, the crushing gravity, the lethal radiation, and the absolute cold is precisely what makes it a perfect, enduring sanctuary for the ancient secrets it keeps sequestered. The very forces that would destroy a human explorer are the same ones that maintain the protective ice, fuel the chemical battery, and keep the global ocean from vanishing into the cold void of space. Feel the final remnants of the day's weight evaporate into the silence of the night, leaving you in a state of perfect, undisturbed serenity as you drift through the quiet wake of the stars toward a dreamless sleep. You are part of a universe that is endlessly creative, a reality where the most forbidding environments can become the most sacred cradles for the potential of life to flourish in the dark. The story of this moon is a testament to the resilience of a world that thrives in the center of a storm, a hidden home that remains safe and still in the calm, eternal embrace of the Jovian system. The silent, frozen reaches of Europa prove that the most forbidding barriers of the cosmos are not walls of exclusion, but the sacred protective layers of a universe that guards its most precious life within the heart of the storm. The silent, frozen reaches of Europa prove that the most forbidding barriers of the cosmos are not walls of exclusion, but the sacred protective layers of a universe that guards its most precious life within the heart of the storm. Deep within this moment of profound realization, let your focus shift gently away from the distant Jovian giants and toward the quiet sanctuary of your own physical form. This quiet room is now your entire universe, a place of ultimate safety where the only movement is the slow, rhythmic pulse of your own heart. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to let go of the day, beginning with the very tips of your toes as they surrender their weight to the soft fabric of your sheets. If we were to look closer at the sensation of rest, we would find it spreading like a warm, gentle tide through the arches of your feet and into your ankles. Feel your calves becoming heavy, sinking inches deep into the mattress as the muscles of your lower legs finally find their release. The knees soften, and the long muscles of your thighs become as still as ancient ice, anchored by the comforting pull of the ground beneath you. This structure of relaxation moves steadily upward, filling your hips and lower back with a sense of dense, immovable peace. Your stomach and chest rise and fall in a slow, effortless cycle, as natural and reliable as the tides of a hidden sea. Every breath you take is a signal to your nervous system that the journey is complete and the time for rest has arrived. Notice how the tension leaves your fingertips, flowing out of your hands and wrists as they rest openly by your sides. Your forearms and upper arms feel weighted and warm, and your shoulders drop away from your ears, settling into a position of total, unburdened support. The neck relaxes, and the jaw unhinges slightly, letting the face become a smooth, expressionless mask of tranquility. This quiet room is filled with a soft, velvet-like silence that wraps around you like a heavy, comforting blanket. The mattress beneath you provides a perfect, yielding foundation that accepts every ounce of your weight without resistance. If we were to look closer at the air in this space, it would feel cool and clean, moving in and out of your lungs with a steady, peaceful rhythm that requires no thought or effort. Surprisingly, the body feels as if it is floating in a depths of absolute stillness, held securely by the reliable support of the bed. The rhythm of your breathing is the only clock that matters now, marking the slow and graceful transition into the deepest levels of rest. You are sinking, drifting, and letting the last remnants of awareness dissolve into the soft texture of the pillow. The weight of the day has been completely left behind, replaced by a sense of profound internal quiet. Everything is still, everything is safe, and everything is as it should be. The silence is your companion, and the darkness is a gentle invitation to let go entirely. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.